Hey you guys, nice to see you. I'm back in the van. I'm up here in Asheville, North Carolina, preparing for a retreat. I have my True Nature women coming here in a couple days, and also preparing to teach on Beltaine with the Sufi teacher and dear friend of mine, Julia Samaya Considine. We're teaching an immersion named Consecrated, and it is devoted to resolving the tension between kind of the honor around sexuality and the erotic, right? And that's why I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this thing that I've been fascinated by for some reason. These conversations that have been on the Whatever podcast, for some reason I found them. They're between traditional wives and OnlyFans girls. OnlyFans, if you don't know, is an online kind of self-generated porn site where you can have subscribers, and some of them make a lot of money. Anyway, the point of that and how it relates to Consecrated is that I'm watching, there were a lot of reasons I realized upon reflection why I was needing to watch these exchanges. And but the one that stands out because it relates to this immersion we're about to hold is that I was watching in some ways, and they set it up this way, the way they invited the women, the kinds of women they invited. On the one side you had these traditional wives, but they were like the epitome of the traditional wife. They're lovely, they're articulate, they're married to someone who loves them who happily provides for them, and who they have like a good connection with. Some of them refer to their husbands as their best friend, right? They have the gift, that they've been given that gift, right? So you got this like kind of these perfect examples in some ways of that, and the security, you can feel it coming off of them, the security, the sense of containment, and they're beautiful. And I'm gonna just go ahead and say they're probably having great sex with their partner. Like, there's love there's connection, right? It's a living relationship that nourishes and sustains and protects them. Lots of women get much more sexual when they feel nourished, protected, and honored. On the other hand, they bring in these OnlyFans girls, and the issue, and my son pointed this out to me, which I was so thankful. I was like, what's bothering me about this? He's like, well, they're setting it up. Because then they bring in these OnlyFans girls, but they pick really young ones. They are not that articulate, right? And at least the ones that are there, it's like they're obviously hypersexualized, but they're also clearly like intoxicated, and they're young. So they're young, they're making money, like they're dealing with a lot of money and a lot of attention and a lot of a lot of sex, and they're like, you can tell that the power they're feeling from it is intoxicating, and they are okay with it in their world right now, in their early 20s, late teens world, right? And there's a certain amount of freedom, I guess, for sure, that they're experiencing, and yet they kind of chose the kind of epitome of, first of all, these girls are making lots of money. I only saw one of them that was doing it because she had kids to support. Generally, that's also a very thin slice of women who work in the sex trade. Some of them, are cut out for it, are made for it. I know them. They do good work. They have a role, and many of them are doing it because they have no other choice. That was not what I was looking at. That's not what you're looking at. You're looking at girls who really like fashion clothes and whatever, who love the attention and the money. Fine, okay. Point is, it's kind of this setup to watch. For me, there's a lot there, but there's the kind of question that's being put on the table is like, what about honor? What about honor? And what about, they never mention the word sacred or soul or love, actually, for that matter. So, we're talking about a very superficial, sweep of a very orphaned culture already. But the point is that what I was seeing and what we're going to be addressing in this immersion is that most of us don't fall into either one of those categories. I don't have my man, my ideal. I've tried, right? If I speak from my position, I also, I understand what it is to be skyclad. I understand the power, like the raw power of female sexual potency and all that it brings. It is power, right? Can you bring together both of those inside? Can we do that inside of ourselves? Regardless of the external. If it was up to me, and there are sex workers in the school, well, I want them to understand what role they're fulfilling that is ancient, and that actually has roots in a certain amount of reverence, right? It's true, and there is a place for it, but there's also self-care needed. My concern when I'm looking at that is I'm concerned about these girls. I'm concerned about the thing that is special in them getting rubbed off. I'm concerned about them being used and so transactional, and what that's going to do to them over time. And on the other side, there are a lot of women in the school who are in relationships, but it's not always easy, and sometimes they can't get out. And sometimes it's not. A lot of times they're not respectful, and they're not, they don't happen to be with their best friend or whatever it is, where things have changed. It's like, okay, wherever we all are, can we come together and be consecrated? That's the point of this immersion. Wherever you are on the spectrum between perfectly content and, honored and idealized and held and really maybe more reckless, right? Potentially. Or with a history of recklessness. Or with needs to be more expressive and less contained. Wherever we are on that spectrum, can we consecrate that? Can we, at this Beltaine time, would you like to, with me, come in and renew your vow to whatever's most true for you, and insist that then that reflects out into however you're expressing? What is your vow? That's where we always have. That's where we always have the deepest nature of what we are as women. Whatever you hold, you're the one holding it. And you're the one stewarding what lives inside of you. And whatever else everybody's going to do, at the end of the day, we can come around to this time. We can come around to Beltaine, and we can take this moment and be purified and work with. What we're going to be working with is I'm going to be bringing in everything that I hold in terms of the sacred marriage and Beltaine and the connection with the good of all of creation and the import of your vow and how to come into right relationship with it again and again and again, regardless what life has brought, right? And Julia Samaya is going to be bringing some of those beautiful teachings from the Sufi tradition around woman and around her subtle nature and around veiling and adab, the politeness, and kind of what it is to then free your erotic potency into the protection of your own sacred regard. To do that together in company of good, deep women, and see then how that reflects into your life. That's what these immersions are for. They're moments to come closer to something more true, to take a pause from everything that's happening, and drink deep, and remember. Remember what you're made of. Remember all that is here in life, in creation, to support what it is to be woman, and to hold the kinds of powers and needs and sacred needs and subtleties and all of this that we hold, that really aren't, that we often don't have much articulate guidance around, right? There's a lot of transactional usury. There's a lot of kind of settling, right? There's a lot of things. And also we're living life and it's not perfect. And anyway, so wherever you find yourself between feeling so revered and whether you find yourself as a woman who really by your nature craves and needs containment, needs to feel honored in order to open, or whether you find yourself on the other end where it's like, no, you don't really need that. And I can accept that. I can accept that. You know, that is not my nature. I have extremely, like a very high honor nature. That's my nature. And I've come to accept that not everybody is like that. You know, I have dear friends who are sex workers, and it's not about that. They are made different, and they are made for that work. And when they unify that work with sacred regard, it changes and it becomes healing work is what it becomes. However, I digress. The point is, if you want to join us, come. It's going to be beautiful. And for me, this time of year and this turn of the wheel is my most treasured holy day of the seasonal wheel, and has been over time so important. You know, I come alone, and I sit by the fire and I ask, what's the vow? What is it? What needs to be purified from me in the way that I've held myself and my sexuality and my body and my energy, you know, and my potency, my vulnerability? How have I held myself? And I let that be purified, whatever did not serve, in whatever ways I was in forgetfulness or confusion. And I ask for, okay, Beltaine to Beltaine, this next turn of the wheel, what would you have me do? My heart, my creator, how would you have me hold this? You know, what do I need to know? And I offer it up again, and I renew my vow. So, love to have you there. Whether or not you join us, I hope that this is, I feel a little rambling this morning, but I hope that this is helpful on some level. I don't want to see us split apart and kind of fractured, and we do need to be veiled and sky-clad at the same time. And that can seem irresolvable, but it's not. It's really not. There are ways for us to have both, and to be erotically potent in all the ways that is, within the protection of our own sacred regard, right? And to then have both. And what we'll do in this immersion together is we'll each reveal to ourselves what that is for us, what it is for you, as you are, in all that you were made to be, and what life is bringing you, what you're working with, right? If you come here, you come into a field of respect and love and regard for you, deep regard for you, whatever you're doing, choosing, or facing. We love you.